You know, Dr. Baldwin, Dr. King has had such a tremendous impact upon not only our generation, but upon other generations. And I think what you're indicating now is that that impact will probably continue on into the 21st century, primarily because there's something that Dr. King stood for. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, yes. We're saying that there is a certain timelessness about his teachings and about the kinds of issues he raised. Unfortunately, the extent to which he will continue to live in our culture will depend a lot on what we do in our churches and what we do in our schools. Okay. Unfortunately, little attention is given to Dr. King in our schools, and little attention is given to him in our churches. We wait until the third Monday in January of each year to celebrate him, when I think we should be talking about him throughout the year, because the principles he raised, or the issues he dealt with, what we should be about today in terms of making the quality of life better for people generally, not just for the rich, not just for those who have means and who have resources, but especially for what Dr. King called the least of these. And he constantly talked about the least of these.
Well, I think you mentioned the celebration of the national holiday. What can you say in reference to that celebration? Do you think that that there's been a lull in reference to what has to be done, and that there ought to be a greater interest in this as a national holiday? I mean, how do you see that?
I think it needs to be, we should not see it as simply a day off work, a day to have picnics, whatever you want, that kind of celebration. I think it's a time for us to get together in workshops and classrooms to talk about the issues that still divide us as a nation. Not merely race and economics and violence and human destruction, but also politics. The nation, as you well know, is very divided now, between what some call the red states and others call the blue states, between what some call conservatives and others call liberal. Unfortunately, we're a very divided nation, and Dr. King always said that we can't achieve much that way. We also need to look at these issues, church-state issues. There's a lot of debate about that going on, about the religious right transcending the boundaries that separate church and state. Dr. King spoke to all these issues. The politics that divide us, the economics that divide us, the race and ethnic boundaries that divide us. And I think he's relevant to all of these issues. So I think instead of holding parades and picnics and just having days off work, we need to devote that day to some type of service to other people, or learning about Dr. King, or learning about how we can address the problems that are part of his unfinished crusade, because his crusade is still unfinished.
And so you think our young people can still play a real role in terms of Dr. King? They can deal with some of the issues that they have to deal with today, looking at his philosophy and whatnot. Is that what
yes. Violence in our schools has reached epidemic proportions, and I think students can learn from Dr. King. We need to stop looking at Dr. King as some type of gentle, passive figure. He was a radical. Who
had a dream,
yes.
He said, and I think that's what most people believe.
Yeah, he was a radical. He was a revolutionary for his times, and he's revolutionary for these times, because he was trying to show us a better and a different way of how to relate, how to say no to violence, how to say no to economic injustice, how to say no to racial injustice, how to say no to religious bigotry and intolerance, all of these problems. So I think he's quite relevant, and we need to stop seeing him as this kind, gentle preacher who led demonstrations and wouldn't fight back, and we need to begin to see him as a radical prophetic figure who challenged us with a prophetic gospel. And I think we put him in the proper perspective when we do that.
But would it be correct to say, Dr. Baldwin, over the last minute that we have, that he was really assassinated, killed, because of his dream rather than anything else?
Exactly.
That what he saw as the possibilities of what could happen, people believe that he ought to be killed because of that.
Yeah, because he was a threat. Had he been this kind, gentle, harmless figure that a lot of us like to project, then there would have been no need for him to be assassinated. He was assassinated because he was talking about a radical change, radical changes in the society, and I think we need to understand that.
Well, Dr. Baldwin, we've got about 40 seconds before we end this show for today, and I just want to thank you for bringing by that excellent information and, in a real sense, updated information in reference to what we've been dealing with on Dr. Martin Luther King. Because,
Appreciate it.
He still, as far as we're concerned, he still is one of those great figures of our century. He was great in the 20th century, and he will be undoubtedly great in the 21st century. And I would imagine that, like Lincoln and Roosevelt and other individuals who will have a tremendous impact upon our society, he will always have that impact. And let me thank you, and let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you, and good morning.